Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for coming to Office Hours. Welcome. It's great to have you here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do on officehours.global. Our first hour, general discussion every day of production and IT-related topics where we answer audience questions. The second hour is always a deeper dive into something. And today we're doing a what's in your bag kind of show, which means that we're going to be discussing a whole bunch of things that solve problems for us in the field and in field production. Also, it might be a good time to think about what you're looking for this holiday season if you're of the gift passing around persuasion. So all those topics will be open in the second hour for discussion. Jason Bache is going to lead the process of looking at that. But for right now, it's time for the show. So Mitch, what have we got as our first question today?
Thank you, Bill. First in from Daniel Goldstein in Baltimore, Maryland, looking for recommendations on how to sync in post audio recorded on a Mac from Dante versus the Blackmagic RAW files recorded on a Blackmagic Design Pocket camera. Is this the sort of problem a tentacle sync solves?
And Alex is going to help us with that. Alex, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, you could use a tentacle sync. I mean, it's just going to give you an audio file that is going to be able to be read as time code. The reality is if you hit record roughly at the same time and you see the audio files, for most of us who grew up without that, without those tools, we were able to usually sync these within a minute or two. The main thing is you just kind of drop it in. Now, if you're doing a whole bunch of takes, it becomes different. And something like Tentacle will make a difference because it just means that one of your channels is going to have an audio time code in it. So that's going to help you put that together. So putting that channel in any devices that are there are going to help you. But remember that, for most of us, again, we did this for a long time without any of these tools. One thing to do is have someone clap. So if you have lots of multiple sources and you don't have time code, you don't have a tentacle sync, you just have them go. Now that's the one time I don't do that when I'm testing sync on a stage, but I do it as what we call like a little mini slate. We just go like this, and that just means that if we've got a bunch of inputs, we can look for that impact that impulse that we can use. So that can be useful as well.
Mitchell.
Well, you're asking for post. The Tentacle is not a post solution. It's a pre-production solution. But some editing systems like Premiere have a way to find a sync point beginning of the file, and then it tends to sync the two files together so you can cut between them and be pretty darn close. I think Bill would have to answer whether or not there's such an animal in Final Cut.
Yeah, there is. There actually Final Cut, and I think most of the modern NLEs, I'm pretty sure Resolve does this as well, will allow you a tiered series of sync possibilities if you have some kind of time code, whether that's SMPTE time code or camera time code, other time code. They will often look at that and sync multiple cameras by that. If not, they try to match an audio waveform between two files to use that as a sync. And you can put markers and things like that. If you have something that's very complex, it's typical in Final Cut, at least, to put markers at a place where you can determine a similarity between multicam shoots. And then once it has a marker, the software is smart enough to understand that you want that for the sync, and it'll line everything up real easy. Alex, do you have, I think Alex, Mitchell Hill is back in. Mitch?
No, I just wanted to say sometimes it's good to slate the front and the ending of the take, so you have it bracketed on both ends to make sure.
Can be. The old history in slating was that you would use a regular side up slate at the beginning, and then what's called a tail slate. You turn the slate upside down and do another sync point there. And if you need, for some reason, both of those, I will say that in the modern file-based workflow era, I don't use any of that anymore because I'm going to be pre-trimming the head and tails off. And what I want is the performance itself without anything ahead of it or behind it. That's too complicated for my editing style today. I want the actual pre-cut lumber of scenes. But each person has their own work style, and however you do it, if it works for you, it's the right way for you to do it. Let's move on to the next question.
Frojan Manuel in San Diego, California asks, could Next Level's model getting fiber to the home by community and HOA finally break the barriers?
And Jason's going to help us.
Boy, we can certainly hope so, but on a nationwide scale, I sincerely doubt it.
fiber to the home is such an important thing. And Alex, what
they're doing here is they're having the actual homeowners pay for the fiber. Like they buy it up front, and then they're only paying a maintenance fee. They're not really paying for a service. They're buying the fiber. And so definitely for far-flung, more wealthy communities, this is great because, they don't have as many houses around. It doesn't make sense to send, they make the argument in the article that this is for everybody, but I think that generally it's for top 20% earners living in a and are willing to say, I'm willing to spend $4,000 on having, once, or $6,000 once, and then $20 a month or whatever, to just have a 1 gig fiber to my house, and to make that work. And I don't know what all those numbers are, but, I know that, I don't have a lot of choices there. We finally saw Frontier come through my space as well as Comcast. So, for even the density that I live in, it's already being solved. But I think that there are plenty of places that would really benefit from this. And I think there are plenty of homeowners that would pay for it.
Mitch Hill?
Rojan, I can't believe the timing of your question, because just before showtime, and I had to tell him I'd call him back, the head of our technical group on our HOA called me to say, hey, Verizon is putting fiber to the building. What do you think we should do? And it's going to be a wholehearted, yeah, do it.
There you go, Alex. You want to get back in?
And what I will say, the best thing that's going to happen is it just lights a fire between what Elon Musk is doing with Starlink and with all these other things, lighting fires under our current providers to move faster, because they're now seeing some real competition. And, I think that usually we stay out of politics, but the best thing we can do as we look at an election season is put pressure on people to provide pole access, heavy fines for delaying pole access. If we did that, our internet costs would, increase by 10x in speed and drop in half in cost. It's just pole access that holds us out.
It was interesting for me. I lived in downtown Phoenix for a long time, and we didn't even have cable TV. And at one point they were bringing in a cable company. And I went down to the city council meeting and actually stood up and said, I'm in a place where my television reception is terrible because of all the big buildings around me. I get a lot of multipaths and ghosts. It's terrible. So I'm really looking forward to cable. So please don't forget about downtown. At 5 a.m. the next morning, there was a truck in my alley getting me cable, because sometimes you just escalate things into a political level and suddenly they wake up and they start to do things. That was one of the most shocking instances in my life, because I just took the time to stand up and do that. So it's possible. Hopefully everybody gets high speed, because it really is great. Let's move on to the next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, Douglas asks, what issues can arise from interfacing guest equipment to an existing Dante network?
Jason.
If you're using hardware, the dedicated, plugins and plug outs made by Autonate, I would say almost none. If you're using software, basically anything that can go wrong on a Dante network can absolutely go wrong.
Mitchell?
I'm not a tier 3 expert on Dante, but I do know that if you plug a guest device on there, it may fight for who's the leader, meaning who gets to do the sync. So the device you're plugging in may not be the best choice for that.
We had a long discussion yesterday. So if some of you missed yesterday's show, go back and watch some of that. You'll learn a lot. I know I learned a lot about how this functions in the back-end technology. Next question.
From Clive Kitchener from Sook, British Columbia, Canada. Are there any pitfalls switching from a cable ISP to a fiber ISP? Tell us 940 megabits per second up and down, and there's a link there to it. If yes, what should I be aware of, and what questions should I be asking?
And Tom's going to start us off.
Well, if they're moving you to fiber, you're going to go from a modem to an ONT. That's an optical network termination. And the ONT does not provide routing, so you will need a router.
Okay, Jason?
I can pick it up from there. You need a much more capable router, because although that little piece of synchronization that the cable companies download into your modem is woefully inadequate, it does provide some sort of filtering, some base level firewall, unless you turn it off. So you need a better router. And another one that I've actually seen firsthand, the gateways that are provided for fiber, if you manage to saturate your bandwidth, instead of queuing it will simply drop the packet, and that can be confusing. So, yeah, that's about it.
Alex.
I mean, the other problem is just a much heavier use of the internet, and the tendency to send other people really, really large files and not be clear that it might take them 2 days to download. Now that you have a 1 gig each way, those are the biggest pitfalls, and then you just have to tamp down the arrogance around your neighbors when they say, "Oh, that took a long time," and you're like, "Oh, I think that took like 30 seconds." So be careful of those pitfalls as well to maintain your relationships around you.
My last property, we got fiber, and I think I was guilty of all of those things. It really is a change, and it's magical. Let's go on to the next question.
From Scott Mueller in Germantown, New York. Scott asked, how can we achieve the intimacy you get with the speaker looking right into the camera on digital first events when doing a live hybrid event? Should we use a podium camera or have a camera right on the confidence monitor when Q&A happens?
David Paskin will start us off, then Alex. David?
Scott, you can't. And that's not technology's fault. That's chemistry and biology. That's because when there are other human beings in the space, we are naturally drawn to pay attention to them. So you can put a camera right up your presenter's nose, and it really won't make much of a difference, I think.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like what we're going to see in the next year and next couple of years is a digital first event, which is that we're going to start seeing us take the speaker and put them somewhere other than the stage. Because when you start thinking about hybrid events and you start thinking about multi-location events, so I'm going to have an event that happens in New York and LA and London all at the same time. The issue is that it's too much data also for the speaker to have. You want to have screens in front of them so they understand what's going on, and you can't do that on a stage or a podium. And so it's much more complicated to do that. And so what you really want to do is move them into a studio. That way also all your other speakers can come in from wherever, and you're not trying to figure out how to make that hybrid thing actually work. It's not, the hybrid is a fad. Like it's not going to last. I know you'll have to do it for a couple of years because people at events are very desperate to do that. But, we're going to stop doing it within the next 5 years. The only old companies with old ideas will do it. So it's really where we're going to go is the speakers are all virtual. Some of them are in studios. Some might be in studios in the same building as the people. Still have people come in. They'll still have dinner and they'll still hang out and have the hallway conversations. But the speaker will come in via a screen. And that's because it puts everybody, if you have 3 cities that do this, it'll put everybody on the same playing field. They'll all feel like we're actually providing an experience that you can't get in the real world. You cannot look eye to eye. Even when the person's on stage, they're not looking eye to eye with you all the time. They're looking at this person, and they're looking at that person, and they're looking at that person. What a digital first event allows for is for them to have eye to eye contact with absolutely every person in the event all the time. And that's something you cannot do in the physical world. And so we're going to see, I strongly believe now, and we've done some events that have already proven it, then you're going to see that is the future. And we'll keep on messing around with this hybrid thing for another couple of years.
And it's interesting. You may have heard us discussing the last couple of days. Can you go too far? And I think the answer is yes. And I learned that I had a corporate gig in a movie theater with the speaker CEO was up there and he was doing an address to the troops. And my camera operator, Carol, on camera 1 had pushed in very tightly on his face. And he turned around and saw his giant head on the screen, and it kind of freaked him out. And I do think in that circumstance, when you get into bigger and bigger IMAG kind of circumstances, you can get too close. I mean, normally closer is more intimate, but we're all trying to struggle with this new language. Do you have a thought?
I've done some stuff with theaters. So, and it's a couple things. One is you generally never put the speaker in the theater that you're in. You don't put the speaker behind themselves. So we don't do that unless we do a little corner of them somewhere, but we won't put a big speaker behind themselves because it freaks them all out no matter what size they are. It's just they're 3 or 4 times bigger than they are normally. It makes them very self-conscious. So we try not to do that. The second thing is that it's interesting. You think that you have to think about in the same way when you do audio, the audio that works in a room in what we call a near field situation does not work in a theater because the physics are different. In the same way with a theater, the framing doesn't work the same way either. So as the screen gets bigger, the person has to get smaller in relationship to the screen. You can't shoot it like you would shoot a live stream, and you can't shoot it like you'd shoot TV with all the close-ups and everything else. You literally want to pull back and have medium wide to wide shots almost all the time on a theater, because that's going to that looks much more natural to the folks that are sitting in the theater, especially the ones that are sitting near the front. Because otherwise, if you put a person's head in the top third of a theater, that person is looking way up, and it looks very odd. So a lot of times we bring that head down a bit, to be in the, so where the eyes are really going across the top third, the border between the middle third and the top third, the eyes go right across there. It will, when you look at it on a small screen, it looks like the most odd framing ever. When you do it when you look at it on a big screen, it looks very, very natural and it's very pleasurable to watch.
David Paskin.
The worst thing about hybrid events is that they trained us to think that the same rules apply to on-site events and digital events. So it may be that for a digital event, if I'm a digital participant, that having the person's mug up on, right on the screen is appropriate. That is completely inappropriate when you're in a live theater, having their big head on the screen. So we just have to allow ourselves, gives ourselves permission to start thinking differently, that these are different on-site and online events are different events. They have different rules, and we just have to accept that and embrace it.
Mitch.
I'm wondering if is it possible to go with a very small teleprompter as an Iteratron. I use this little device here that's very small. It's only about 7 inches. And if you could get the camera in there, and it goes on like a matte box, maybe that's small and unobtrusive enough that the CEO or the person doing the show could see it without too much trouble.
Alex?
I've done that. It's super weird for the people in the room. We did it. We got a little bit of friction from it. We actually did it in the synod with the Pope. So we had a C300 that was sitting on a little teleprompter that sat right in front. Now it was a hangout, so that they were the primary audience were the students that were in different countries talking about things, but we did that, and it worked fine for the students that are online. The problem with hybrid is you can't serve both markets, and so we built something that was incredible for the students. The students got to got to speak to directly to the Pope, through this thing, and it looked great and sounded great. But for everybody else in the audience, the Pope was hidden behind this, not hidden, but you could see the screen and there was things and lights and everything else. And so that for the live stream and for the pieces, it was fine, but for the folks in the room, it was not fine. And so I think that you're going to either make it great for someone online, or you're going to make it great, or it's going to be great for the folks online. It's going to be great for the people in the room, or it's going to be kind of muddled and weird for everybody. Like that's what a hybrid. It's like that duck boat, that kind of works on the in the water and kind of works on the street, but it's really goofy. That's a hybrid event.
So I let that go a little while because I thought that was really useful information and I thought it fascinating. Let's move on to the next question now.
David Paskin from Miami, Florida, and here on our panel asked, when the companion beta build is updated for Zoom OSC ISO, do you need to rebuild your Stream Deck buttons after updating?
Jason?
Can't speak directly to Zoom ISO, but yeah, in Companion, there is an import-export tab. So you can import and export. And personally, the way that I do this is with 2 separate memory cards. That way, if anything is awry, I can just shut it down and switch it back.
David Paskin.
But I guess what I'm asking is, when they update the build itself, the modules, and so let's say they've updated the feedback on participant buttons, and I've already built my companion module and I already have it on my Stream Deck. Once I download that new beta build, do I need to re-drag in each of my participants? I guess what I'm asking is, does the build affect the buttons themselves?
Jason, do you know?
I mean, I can guess, but I'd rather not.
Yeah. Let's see. Who are our companion experts that you should look out for? Obviously,
I think technically I'm supposed to be one of those people because I'm teaching the Stream Deck session. But if we don't have an answer, that's okay.
You don't know every single thing about the software, including how it was coded and what it does. I'm shocked. Let's Let's dive into the next question.
Chris Widener is here from Lafayette, Indiana. What tools have you used and can recommend for doing text polls, like sending a text to participants and tabulating the responses?
And Alex is going to help us.
Yeah, haven't done here. We've researched this, but we haven't done it. And there's two reasons for that. Number one is usually it's easier to use web-based polling tools. And then if you scale up, you go, oh, I want a lot of people in a lot of different places. It's actually pretty expensive. Like every poll, you're now paying for those texts. And every time we did the math on this, we were like, oh, that doesn't make any sense anymore. Like you really have to look at those budgets. I don't know we haven't looked at it for a couple of years, so maybe it got a lot better. But it turned into like, oh, if we have 1,000 people sending polls in, are those polls really worth it? Because they're costing us like, $50 a poll or something. Like it was not a trivial number that we looked at. And so we've always walked away from it because of that.
Okay, next question.
Jeff Cohen, Miami Beach, Florida, asked, does anyone know of an automated Zoom test meeting one can join that shows real-time specs for the audio and video it's receiving, not what I'm sending?
Doesn't look like anyone's weighed in on this one yet. Alex will. Alex?
Your data is what it's sending out. As far as the meeting goes, that's going to be dependent on the quality of the connection for the test meeting on the other side. You're not going to, if you're capable of pulling that in, you're generally going to pull it in. The only time that changes is if someone joins with a mobile device that is going to drive everything down to 720. So that's where you're going to see that. I think. I don't think that there's any, I don't think there's any good benefit on the other end for you to just see if it received it. That dependency is really dependent on other people jumping in. So if you go in by yourself and the other side has a good connection and you have a good connection, and the send that you send out should be identical to the one that you receive, and be very surprised if that's different. Where it changes is where different people with different requirements jump into it, and the reflector does what it needs to do to serve everybody efficiently.
Next question.
David Brady from New York, New York. Zoomtopia exhibitors. Is there a list of exhibitors that participated in Zoomtopia 2022? There was a head-worn camera viewfinder I saw on a table in the Zoom Discovery portal. I think it was shown in the second day keynote. I hope Guy saw it.
Well, fortunately, Guy is here. Guy?
Yeah, I did see it, and I had looked up some of these type of products before the show. Basically, this one's by a company called RealWire, and it is like a computer that's got a camera and a monitor that goes over your eye, and then you can listen and talk, and this is the future. I used to own a HoloLens, and it's similar technology. The HoloLens was cool because it had the built-in ability to put in a SIM card, and this one, I'm not sure how it gets its internet, but they're pretty handy. I mean, it's the future. This one actually does thermal as well. So for those folks that are doing like industrial type applications where they need to see where heat is, and the person from afar, like an engineer, can be helping out from afar as somebody else is looking at it. So this is the future. I mean, they're really cool. And I put a link in the chat directly to this site.
Gee, which server in the rack is having problems? I don't know.
Get to star in your own Alien versus Predator movie in real life. Alex, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, I've actually used the RealWire, headset, and it is, and I've had one for a little while. It's probably the closest thing to Google Glass that I've seen. It comes under instead of over, which is a little bit better. I didn't use any cellular. We just connected it to Wi-Fi. It is an Android, kind of an Android solution there. It is really designed, for point of, you're an engineer, you're someone looking at something, and you can send that back. And there's ways to highlight things and so on and so forth that you have in there. So someone on the far end can see what you're seeing and draw on what the video that you're sending to them, and you will see their drawing on it, which is kind of cool. So that they can put an arrow like, this is the bolt that you need to loosen, and they can actually literally draw on it to show it to you, and it'll show up on your little headset. So I think that they've really figured out the workplace area. The weakness in it is that it doesn't have any, well, at least the one that I tested didn't have any kind of anything that would stabilize it. So the stabilization wasn't there. And so there was a lot of movement in it because I was looking at it as I'm still looking for the perfect headset to record training, 1080p 30, I want to have it, down right in front of me so that I can see what I'm shooting and then have my hands out in front of me working on things. And the only thing that has been close to that has been Google Glass. And I've tested a lot of things to try to test it. So RealWear was one of the ones that I tested. And I think for the vertical that it is targeted to, it does an exceptionally good job. For the vertical I was looking for, it didn't quite fit the model.
So we're going to remind everybody it's a great time to toss questions in. This expert panel is cutting expertly through questions that are really rapid clips. So if you have thoughts, put them in the question queue, but we're ready to go to the next one.
And it's from Chris Widener in Lafayette, Indiana. Chris asked, there are quite a few techs to donate services out there with wildly varying fees. Does anyone have a recommendation for one to use for nonprofit donations? David Paskell's going to help us out here. David?
Sure. I'm a fan of Give Lively, which I've used for my the temple here in our school. It has text to donate. It also has web pages, lots of other things, but it's really simple. You choose your custom message, your custom code, text it to 44321, and it brings them right to a really nice mobile-friendly page.
Sounds great. Let's move on to the next question.
Javier Alfaro from Mexico City, and here on our panel. Since the last iOS beta, which I think includes beta firmware for AirPods, I've been experiencing a bug where sound drifts from one side to the other. Has anyone else experienced this?
Javier is going to start us off here. Javier?
I just want to give a little more context. It's super weird because you're listening to the AirPods. It's happened to me in the iPad, in the iPhone, which both are running the beta, but also in the computer that's not running beta software. That's why I think it's a firmware thing. And then the sound starts moving to one side. I think it's a delay issue because it gets to a point where you can hear separate, you hear both different audio. So I'm not sure if anyone has experienced this or.
Jason.
So my guess is that this has to do with another known bug that kind of, no matter whether you turn it on or off, you end up with dynamic head tracking turned on. This is the feature where, if your iPhone is to the left, it will ever so slightly start pairing to the left. And even a small mistake along those lines can absolutely mess with this. I would go into Control Center, hold down the volume, and then just turn off spatial audio at the lower right. Hopefully that hopefully that'll turn off both spatial audio and head tracking. Maybe you can only get away, or you can get away with just turning off one of those, but that's where I'd start.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm not in the beta and I'm experiencing a little bit of the same thing. And it does seem to be when I'm moving around. So I do think that Jason might be onto something as related to spatial audio. I have to admit that spatial audio kind of drives me crazy. It is like when I'm walking around, it should know that and just stop doing it. But it is. I love spatial audio in general. I want to hear all that music all around me. I just don't want to do any head tracking. So getting not head tracking is important. I think that was a feature that someone thought about too much, and so, but I am noticing the same thing. And I don't hear it smoothly either. It goes over to one side, then comes back to another. And I hear it on my AirPods. I hear it a couple times a day. It's usually just a couple seconds, but it happens. I'm on them a lot. So
I use mine a lot too, and I haven't had that particular problem, but mine has been my right ear transparency keeps switching on and giving me a little feedback out of that. So I have to go to my phone once a week or so and just knock transparency off there. Javier, do you have another thought?
Yeah, I actually tried what Jason said. That's turning off the tracking and the spatial. I thought it could be like that, but it keeps getting weird. The other thing I didn't say, when it starts moving and you press the noise cancel, it only sounds in one ear, turns on in this one and turns off. When you turn it off, it changes. So I'm pretty sure it's I already reported to Apple, so I'll let you know what they tell me.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a little instability in the software right now because I'm having some of those click problems too. Jason?
I've got one more dumb thought along those lines. If you have severely out of touch AirPods such that one battery is maybe 30% lower than the other, you will absolutely run into that problem. So make sure that they're exactly the same and don't just rely on what the case tells you.
Okay. So a variety of solutions. Hopefully one of those will help you solve the problem, or an update may help you solve the problem. Next question.
Stefan Fischer from Würzburg, Germany, asks, Black Friday is ahead. Is there anything you did not buy until now because you were waiting for that opportunity?
Guy's going to start us off here, Guy.
Yeah, the one that I've been waiting for is the MIDI software. That's the software that's for playout, and they usually have a really good Black Friday deal. And I have one of their licenses that I bought in a previous year, and to upgrade cost about as much as the license on Black Friday. So I've been waiting for that one. The other thing is you're going to see a lot of crazy deals because what happened during the supply chain shortage was we ordered a lot of stuff. And so a lot of stuff came in eventually when the supply chain issues at the ports, the backup became something that was a non-issue. We got in tons of stuff. So you'll see this across the board with lots of manufacturers. So keep your credit card at the ready for some of those deals because they're coming.
Mitch Hill.
Somebody's offers literally sucks the numbers off your credit card while it's in your pocket. I'm looking for some software from Isotope and Waves. Of course, Waves, you have to wait 2 weeks for something to happen, but that's where I'm headed.
Don't scare me with near field communication. That could someday be possible. Alex.
Yeah, I'm getting a new refrigerator. I'm pretty proud of that. The sales are already out there. The early sales on the refrigerator. My refrigerator, I literally it died. It's not like I'm upgrading. Like, oh, it'd be really good to have a new refrigerator. I don't have a freezer right now. So anyway, so the freezer died, and so I'm getting a General Electric profile.
Let me guess. It doesn't have Wi-Fi because that's a terrible idea.
I really wanted it. So here's the funny thing is that I was pretty sure I was going to get the Samsung with the Samsung with the big screen on the front or the LG. I was like, I got to have a fridge with a screen. Like, I just thought that would be really cool. And I went to Home Depot and literally touched the screen and said, nope. Like it was something about it. The way it responded, I was like, oh, that's going to drive me crazy. And it literally took me I was really glad because I was just ready to buy it like online and just have it show up. And I was like, so sure that I wanted it. But as soon as I touched it, I was like, it was just very buggy, just didn't feel like people really understood that this needs to be really smooth and easy to use. And it's, I immediately took me to a page that it got locked into and I couldn't figure out how to get home. And, just like, okay, they haven't figured out the interface part yet. So, so then I just looked for build quality. So same price, but just build quality and really just all the little bits and things that I wanted. And so anyway, so that's what I'm getting. Probably other things, but that's the big thing I'm getting.
Mitchell.
Good choice, Alex, because I have a profile that's been there for 30 years, and I might replace it with a Bosch, but we'll see. Also, tires for the car. Very expensive proposition when you have a Benz.
Do they have tires? Do tires go on?
Absolutely. Sam's
Black
Club
Friday?
and Discount Tire. Absolutely.
Yeah, NTB, which is Tire Rack, and Tire Kingdom offering $150 mail-in rebate right now.
There's a Tire Kingdom? Excellent.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm looking for a new microwave. We had a microwave die. And I got to tell you that the advancement in technology has got me flummoxed totally. There are so many new kinds of technologies. You go to buy something like a microwave. Do you want it with or without radiant? Do you want it with or without? There's just so many new things. And there's a whole new kind of microwave, I guess. It's just complex. David?
I love that on a show about media and events, we're talking about tires and microwaves. I'm going to get some new pants.
There we go. Very good. Very good.
All right. I guess it's time to move on, although that was fun.
Projan Manuel from San Diego, California has a question. Is there a good way to use ND, neutral density filters, with a SmallRig cage on an iPhone 13 or Pro Max?
Tom Ferguson.
Well, yes, there is. There are two ways. They do come with the bayonet filter from Moment, where you can actually put in a neutral density filter, but that will probably vignette on you. I prefer to just cut out a piece of gel and tape it on the front.
Oh, there you go. Going old school for us. I've done it both ways and they both work. Let's move on to the next question.
Next one in from Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida. I understand from our Zoom rep that Zoom Production Studio will require an added Zoom Events license. Though it will function in Zoom webinars, why limit access to Zoom Production Studio?
Guy got in first, Guy.
Well, they're a for-profit company. They got to make money. So in order to roll out these tools, they got to hire staff, and we know who they've hired. so Adam Tao is the gentleman behind the scenes who we know that also created Mix Effect. He's doing a bang up job. And so to have all that staff, and I met some of the developers at the show, there's a team, there's a lot of people, and those people require money. And so the Zoom webinars, it's one fee, but Zoom events is $99 a month for the 500. And I think it's well worth it if you want to encourage them to, keep pushing the ball down the field with creating new services. And it takes money, and they got to show profit.
Alex?
Yeah, and I also believe that for large corporate clients, webinar is not something that it's part of a big package. So it doesn't have a specific revenue stream. And so events does have that. so it makes it a little easier for them to make sure that, again, Adam's paid for. And I think, and other things. And I think I was pretty against it when I first heard about it. I was like, this is a horrible idea. And I do think that it will, the hard part is that webinar is very, it's out there with a lot of people using it, and only a handful of people will use events in the same way. I mean, a small percentage, probably less than 1% of webinar users will ever sign up for events. And so it's a little unfortunate because people won't have a better experience, in that area. It builds up more business for us because people won't, most webinar users won't even know that events exists. That's the problem. And so, but I do understand why they're doing it. And I think that it's probably a valid reason there, but I think that they maybe, they have the opportunity to kind of change the world and how events occur, and hiding it behind events may slow that down a fair bit.
Fair enough. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is back, and he says, my 2017 MacBook Pro quad-core i7 has a keyboard that is starting to fail. Considering that a Mac Studio will be my main system, would the 14-inch M1 Pro MacBook Pro still be the best adjunct to it for audio Xcode work? Or could I get away with a maxed M2 MacBook Pro Air?
MacBook Air. Alex Lindsay.
From a speed perspective, you can probably use that for either one of those things. The main thing is you just have to know that you need a separate monitor. You're not going to be able to do any of that work on a 14-inch monitor. It's just too small.
There you go. Next question.
Next question is in from David Paskin, Miami, Florida. And here on our panel, did anybody get cool swag from Zoomtopia? I just got my whale puzzle and spent the evening putting it together.
A whale puzzle? A whale puzzle? Do you have a camera on it somewhere, David?
A whale puzzle. So it comes in two sheets. It's like little, really, really, really thin plywood, and you have all these pieces. You have to pop them all out and put it together, and you get your little Zoom whale, your Zoomtopia whale.
Wow.
If I were smarter, it would not have taken me all night. But maybe a week ago, someone actually mentioned that you can get the shirt, the swag on, and I clicked on the link that they shared, and I didn't see a shirt, but I saw a whale, and it's free. So go to the Zoomtopia store and get yourself a whale.
Honestly, how many hours did it take for assembly?
It took about an hour and a half, but I'm not very bright, so
I don't think that's true. Guy Cochran.
All right, the coolest swag of the year award goes to drum roll, please. This is my son putting together his Lego PTZ camera from Bird Dog. So this wasn't handed out to everybody, but they had him kind of stashed. As I was talking to Dan Meal and Eamon, who have been on the show here before, they kicked me down one of these things, and we sat there and put it together. And this part actually moves up and down, and we stuck the stickers on. It was a lot of fun. So that's the coolest swag of the year award that I got at Zoomtopia.
That's pretty awesome. Are those actual official Legos? Are they?
They are.
They are. Wow. Indeed. So you could put that on top of your Lego castle and be the only person with a surveillance castle. That's outstanding.
It's 8K HDR, 35 millimeter full frame sensor.
Yeah, of course.
ST2110. It's awesome.
Perfect. All right. Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, here's his question. I've heard of devices that use liquid nitrogen to create fog effects like this, and he's got a link to it there. Would the lighting director be responsible for them, or a dedicated special effects operator?
That's a dangerous technology, so we're going to our dangerous technology expert, Alex Lindsay.
I know almost nobody that uses liquid nitrogen for smoke effects. There are a lot of other tools that can do that. It's a matter of cooling it down. So you need the smoke to be cooler so that it will want to go down, because most haze and most smoke machines are putting something out that will it's warmer than the air, and so of course it's going to disperse. But these cooler ones, there's one by I can't think of the name of the company, but it's called a Cumulus, that does not use, that will adhere to the ground and build kind of low level. But the problem with, low level smoke, and I just can't think of who makes the Cumulus, but it's one of the typical DJ companies that make those, and they're not super expensive to get those, and those will be low line. But we get those kind of ones so that we did one about a year ago, and almost exactly a year ago. And you kind of pumped it in, and it would just go up over the bar and come down over the top, and it's really nice. But we didn't need to use liquid nitrogen for that, and I wouldn't recommend it. It's really dangerous. Liquid nitrogen is really cool. I make my ice cream with it, but it's I make ice cream with it, but I have a decant. I have I have a specific case for it, and so I go to a place and I'm very careful with it, and when we use it, we put safety goggles on, and we make it, but it makes great ice cream, just in case you're wondering. But I wouldn't use it for smoke, but the ice cream I highly recommend.
I'm just remembering back in theater arts with the 55-gallon drum doing dry ice fog effects, and I'm missing those days. Mitchell, you had a thought?
Liquid nitrogen is very dangerous. You can burn the heck out of yourself. My skin doctor uses it to hit spots on my face, so you wouldn't want it.
Yeah, it is. This is a beware.
Air and gas, by the way, or gas and air. Is it air gas? Is the place you can go actually buy liquid nitrogen, just in case you're wondering. And again, I don't recommend it for smoke. If you have kids or you just want to impress people, making homemade ice cream with it is exceptional.
There you go. Next question.
Javier Alfredo from Mexico City, and here in our panel. I want to buy a new TV. No real need for smart apps since I'm using an Apple TV 4K. What should I look for spec-wise to future-proof my purchase? Any specific brand or model recommendations?
Okay, we got Mitchell, Tom, and Alex. Mitchell, you're in.
Javier, I'm with you. I miss the old days where you plug the HDMI into it and out comes the picture without having to navigate through some kind of smart app. And there are some Sony and LG, I believe, they call them dumb monitors, but they're not so dumb because they just allow you to plug a cable into it and off it goes. So that would be the way I'd go. And the new hot setup nowadays is micro LED. That's the new thing to go for.
Tom Ferguson.
Well, I'm partial to the LG. I would recommend you go over to a YouTube channel called HDTV Test. The young man there has some interesting ways to guide you through the setup and make sure that you check all the boxes. On my LG, though, what really made the biggest difference was I bought a maintenance remote from Amazon and actually turned off a couple of features that could only be done underneath the covers, and that allowed me to get better HD.
Interesting. Alex.
Yeah, the most of the folks that we worked with that know a lot about monitors lean towards the LGs. You want to make sure that you have, as a basic thing, you want to make sure you have Dolby Vision, because that's going to be the highest quality HDR solution. So Dolby Vision, if you can, HDR 10 Plus, which is the I don't want to pay for Dolby Vision version of Dolby Vision from Samsung. And so having both of those means you have maximum compatibility with anything that's coming through. But generally, if someone's going to do HDR 10 Plus, they'll do Dolby Vision as well, because they're both very similar formats. The LG, I believe it's the C1s. They're CX and C1s, and I think that the ones that we've used in the past are the C1s. They're a little bit more expensive. CXs are a little less expensive. Both of them are almost identical. Like they're pretty close together. But those are the ones that a lot of people in the know have been buying to when they put them, for testing, like when they're actually looking at it. Obviously, 4K is a minimum. You may want to think about 8K, and then so that I think you'll end up buying another TV before you see 8K footage that, in any kind of way, shape, or form. So I think that the 8K is cool if you're generating 8K, content. But if you're not generating 8K content, I don't know what you'd see in the next 5 years, in my opinion. I think it's just there's a transport problem of getting it to your screen that is expensive and hard. It's not so much that the technology can't do it. It's just we can't get it to you in a reasonable amount of bandwidth. So it's probably 3 to 5 years before we see any real 8K. And if you don't get a monitor that's over 80 inches, you have very little chance of seeing the difference between 4K and 8K. So I would get it as big as you can. Big, 85, 83, I think is now the thing. I don't know how they build these wafers, but 83 and 85, but over 80 inches. I think if I was going to buy another TV, I'd probably go with a larger one, just because it really gets to, when you get to 80 inches, over 80 inches, you really, in a great sound experience, you don't need to go to the theater. Unless you're going to go to IMAX or Dolby Cinema. There's no regular theater that competes with, in my opinion, sitting at your couch and watching 85-inch HDR with 714 or 514. It's pretty more, or a sound bar. You're pretty much not going to get the same experience at a theater.
Is there still a ridge? This is just a personal question of mine. In terms of, it used to be if you were up to 48 inches and then up to 63 inches or whatever, the prices were pretty competitive. You got above a certain tier and they jumped up by a substantial factor.
It appears to be over 85 now is where that ridge just goes. It just goes astronomical. Like once you get to, when you go to 90, 100, 110, those are all like real, those are in the 15, 20,000 or at least 10,000 range. They just go, okay, well, that's a different fab, and so it gets really large, but it seems to be about, that we see 85-inch now for a couple $1,000s, not the highest quality ones, but they've definitely dropped, and 75-inch screens are at $1,000, I think, especially in and this is a good time to buy it, of course, because we're going into Black Friday, so well timed.
Now and right around the Super Bowl, always big times for television sales. Let's move on to the next question.
Chris Widener from Lafayette, Indiana, asks, when having a microwave in a recording environment, how have you shielded to prevent interference when your next recorder wants a burrito?
Mitchell Hill.
Microwaves do not belong in a recording environment. They're probably a convenient Taco Bell somewhere outside the building.
Oh boy. Yeah. Alex.
I mean, you can have a kitchen separated somewhere with a microwave. That's fine, but I wouldn't put them in a recording studio. I wouldn't put them inside that. They're generating a lot of energy, and it causes a lot of idiosyncrasies and a lot of things. And you probably shouldn't stand near them when they're on, in general, just in case you're wondering. There, about a 2-foot radius around them that you probably, when I put something in a microwave, I after talking to someone who worked on microwaves, when I put something in a microwave, I step back, so he's like, you won't notice it. He goes, well, you don't know what it does to the cells, within about 2 feet of the microwave. So you shouldn't sit in front of the window, like staring into it. It's probably not the best thing for you.
Also, the new term inverter microwave, the power supplies have changed, and I'm finding there's another one of those little shelves. If you get into inverter microwaves, which I guess heat more evenly, it's just too much information floating around in my brain from this purchase. Let's go to the next question.
From Stefan Fischer in Würzburg, Germany, Alex was recently talking about 6 Zen-based rules on how to present or teach. I searched for it, but couldn't find it. Would you be so kind as to tell them again?
Alex is turning to the side to grab something.
I have the book. Paul Wallace put it out there, I think in a question or somewhere in one of the chats recently. So it's around, but I'll say it again. Maybe someone can put it in Discord so we don't read the reason I love this. I can't remember. I used to study Eastern philosophy. That was one of my majors before I dropped out. Because if you study Eastern philosophy, eventually you realize it's all empty, meaningless anyway, and then you just drop out of school. And so not many people graduate from Eastern philosophy, and if they do, they didn't really get it. So anyway, but I don't remember most. This is from D.T. Suzuki, Zen and the Japanese Culture, and it talks a lot about samurai and the cultures around samurai. And one of the things it talks about is the diseases. And I have, there's very few. I've kept this book laying around for. I've had this book in some way, shape, or form for 30 years now, and this is the only thing that I remember from it. And I keep it. It literally, as you can see, how quickly I got it. I think I ponder this every once in a while just to keep it in my head. So, because it really is a great idea around thinking about how you approach projects and how you present and how you build things and the things that will get you caught up, So the idea, however worthy and desirable of itself, becomes a disease when the mind is obsessed with it. The disease is the disease or obsessions the swordsman has to get rid of are, number one, the desire for victory. So, and there's so many places that we are just trying to win. We're not thinking about just how to get it done and the proper way to approach it and how to do it. So the desire to win. Number 2, the desire to resort to technical cunning. So trying to do something really well, rather than looking at what really makes a difference, we're trying to resort to, and we're really good at this at visual effects of being flashy, like trying to do something that makes sense in your head and like, oh, this will be a really cool way to do this. And that usually is what gets you when you're doing a present. Number 3, the desire to display all that one has learned. So you just learn this is very common. Someone learns something new in After Effects or in Motion or whatever, and then they use it on everything because that's the new thing that they're excited about. Number 4, the desire to overawe the enemy. So the desire not to think about what is absolutely necessary. And we see this all the time as well, but to throw the kitchen sink in there and make it look really, really cool for no reason. Like that that's not pushing that forward. 5, the desire to play a passive role. And so sometimes you get into a situation where you don't act because of whatever reason you just decide you're going to be passive about that. And then finally, lastly, the desire to get rid of whatever disease he's likely to be infected with. so it's kind of a circular thing. And that's, constantly trying to fix these things. It's not about fixing them. It's about being aware of them. And then they fix themselves. And so anyway, those are the 6. I added a little commentary because I think some people ask like, why do you like that thing? But I think about it all the time when I'm working on projects, and I look for the ones that I'm doing because you're doing them all the time.
I can definitely use a copy of something if someone wants to write it called Zen and the Art of Digital First Events. Way too much comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question.
Wayne Ma from Park City, Utah. Do you have a list of product recommendations?
Well, let's start with Guy Cochran.
Thought you'd never ask. Yeah, we have this little store online, and over the last few years, we've put together a page that just on office hours, we've recommended so many things like the cameras, headphones, lighting, and there's just things that have popped up through these questions: the Heils, the DPAs, the Countryman's, the Rode, the mixers, prompters, capture devices, vMix, Mimo Live, switchers, transmitters, webcams. I need to add the Insta360, so that'll be up in a couple hours here. Auto poles, SanDisk, and then there's still some new stuff that's we'll show here in the second hour that I need to add on here. Some lighting stuff that's really cool. That's new and portable. Excellent, David Pasca.
That's an amazing resource. A lot of folks use kit.co. This is what I use to kind of throw up your favorite gear. And so I would suggest, in addition to visiting the DVE store, is to find people that you trust and see if they have a kit.co page available.
Tom Ferguson.
You never have enough battery, shall we say. So I would say right now, what I'd be putting on my list would be the 20,000 milliamp hour battery pack for $41 here from Anker.
There you go. There'll be a lot of things. And I think we'll probably talk about some of these things on our second hour when Jason takes on what are the cool things for this year for the holiday season. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas asked, any recommendations on a 75 or 85-inch TV for a backdrop like we discussed yesterday?
Alex.
The good news is it doesn't have to be very expensive. It's putting an image out and you're turning it way down. You're not making it. Now, there's a couple things that do make a difference. Is you probably want 4K. Otherwise, it'll reduce the array because the pixels will be closer together. So if you do an 85-inch 1080p, you will be challenged at certain zoom lengths with Array across the screen that you will not see as much if you do an 85-inch. There are now 85-inch, from Hisense and others that are as little as $1,200 for 85-inch. So the prices have dropped a lot. I think Hisense, I might lean, Samsung makes one for about $1,300. So you can find things that are, circa 2021 that are anywhere from 1,300, like the Samsung 85-inch UHD TU 7000 series is $1,297. It's 85 inches, and so I think that you'll find that those are pretty good. If for some reason you think you're going to do high frame rate, then make sure that they're doing 120 hertz. But most of them will. And so anyway, those are the things that I would look at, but you don't have to get a high quality one. It's not going to make any difference.
Moving on. Next question.
From Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida. Andy asks, can you recommend an affordable quality shotgun mic? Client does not have the budget for a Bill Davis 416.
And David Paskin will start us off here.
Yeah, the Video Mic NTG from Rode is a really nice little shotgun mic. You get this little guy, pop it right on there. One of the things I love most about it is that it has a physical volume or gain dial, I guess, on the tushy of it, which is really, really convenient.
And Mitchell.
If you don't have Bill Davis money, Sennheiser does make an entry-level shotgun. It works great. The MKE 600 is about the third the price of the 416. Sounds pretty good.
And Alex.
Yeah, we've used a lot of the NTGs. So the Rode NTGs have been kind of our, like, we're going to send it out with a kit. They have a considerably more self noise than the 416, but that usually can be filtered out. So they just have a little bit of a little bit of hiss that comes with them that you don't hear when you use a 416. But usually, we've used them for a lot of shows, so they've been fine.
I will just note that my 416 came to me about 10 years after my Neumann because I kept looking for one on the used market that I was pretty trusty in, and I got it finally, but I had to wait a long time. So sometimes patience is a virtue if you're looking for a particular piece of kit that is not normally in your budget range. Next question.
From David Brady, New York, New York. Has anyone on the panel used an SR1 International's test measurement utilities? Any idea on price and usefulness?
Alex.
Yes. So we've used them. We've had the opportunity to use them in a variety of things, and I'm trying to actually get them for us as we get closer to the HDR stuff I've been putting together. I think that there are a couple different prices. You can get into a yearly, you can get into a buyout, or you can get into a yearly. And I keep on meaning to bring the SRI folks on to the show to really talk through these charts. They're amazing. So these are video files that play out, and what they do is they interrogate your entire video pipeline visually. So what happens is you have a source file that you know that this is 10-bit HDR, whatever it is. And when it goes through the system, if anything changes somewhere from one side to the other, you will see it on the other side. You'll see that it got converted to 8-bit at some point. You'll see that it's no longer HD. You'll see that, and the different files there, and they're really mostly video files. Now, the one that I want to get is actually and I believe it's $7,500 a year, or something in that ballpark, to have these, and you get your name on them. So anybody can use them. They're just video files. But what I like is they build a piece of hardware. You can play out the files. What's nice about the hardware is that it's a known source, so that that when it goes out of that SDI, it's doing what it needs to do, and there's no other part of software or other things that could possibly be corrupting it on the way out. And so I think that it's a really, really useful tool. And as we get closer, we'll definitely end up having one. It's just a matter of getting the money together to have it here, so that we can, as we move into HDR, especially, we can. A lot of times it's just really hard to have a source that tells you, like, is this working? Am I looking at HDR? Am I looking at, does it think it's that way? Or did we lose something in the process? Really, really powerful tools. It's probably the one place that I'll stop. I mean, and I've worked with, they have a lot of different files, and I've worked with different ones for different clients. The one place that I'll stop at IBC or NAB is the SRI booth, just to look at all the different patterns they've come up with, because a lot of them I haven't seen before. And I'm like a kid in a candy store with test files. It's a really, really great product. If you have the resources to get it, I would highly recommend it.
Mitch Hill.
Not to be confused with the Sarnoff SR1, because they're darn close in spelling.
Oh, there you go. Next question.
Next question coming in from Douglas Carmichael. Many government agencies use Twitter as a tool for communication with the public in emergency situations. With the decimation of the company staff under Musk, do you think we'll see the return of the fail whale?
Mitch, thoughts?
I'm not sure what that is, but I do know there is an EBS system that's nationwide, and people get text from their iPhones and Android phones from the government.
Alex?
Yeah, and I think that Twitter would probably do well with cutting off a lot of their services, because no one cares about 80% about what Twitter does other than the feed. Like I would, if Twitter went back to where they were 10 years ago and they didn't have a algorithm and they just showed me the feed of people that I was following and they turned off almost all the other features they put into it, I don't think they'd have much of a drop in people using Twitter. The problem that Twitter's had is that almost everything they added in the last decade has been worthless. Like, it just hasn't made it hasn't changed people's use of the platform dramatically at any given point in time. And it's also why they're underwater financially, is because they haven't added anything anyone cares about. And when they do add it, they add it so badly that it's just hard to use. Their video service is a good example.
Fair enough. We have one more to go before the top of the hour here. Let's take it on.
Chris Widener, Lafayette, Indiana, asked, have you seen and he has a link to the Rode Go 2 cage from DSLR Shooter. Thoughts?
And David Paskin is going to help us out here.
So I love DSLR Shooter, and this cage is really adorable. It's called the Go Lock. You pop your wireless Go 2 transmitter in there. It has a lock for your lav mic, and it provides a little extra protection also. So the threaded lav lock, you still have access to all of the ports, get a little bit of protection, and you can print your own. It's a 3D printed Go Lock using the free digital files, or you can purchase it for $40.
Looks really cool. Great little product. So we've reached the top of the hour, and Jason's going to take over things for the second hour as we go through our process. Jason, what do you got for us today?
So many of us have spent days or weeks in the field or event space, relying on little more than our wits and the equipment on our backs. So it seems there's no shortage of tiny production-solving, nightmare little gadgets. But it's important to remember the maxim that more is not better. So how do we strike a balance between our desire to impulse buy our way out of yesterday's production headache with the kind of inherent imperative to travel light and keep our creative minds in the moment where they actually belong, because that's how we're getting paid? I guess for the next hour, Bill and I will be going back and forth with props and what have you to just show what we think has made the cut over the years, and maybe a few things that might not have. So, do you want me to take over host, Bill? How are you how do you want to do this?
I think we can just bounce back and forth. Right now, we have one person who's popped in on the bottom. That's Alex Lindsay. Alex, what do you think?
I don't have a lot of things to show because I just turned my studio inside out, to move everything around. And so I realized I saw what was going on. I was like, oh, I should have looked at this yesterday. I could have collected a bunch of things, but I'll tell you a couple of things that are in my bag, or that I usually use. I haven't traveled as much in the last couple of years. And so I don't have a bag I used to have a bag that was pretty much quote unquote a go bag, that it was basically just had all the things that I thought I would need. And I didn't really have to do anything other than pick it up and go. Now, it was also 35 pounds. And so my back is much better now that I don't carry it around all the time, because it was really like what I carried around all the time. So here are a couple things that I had in there. I use my go bag is a Rush 24. I have tried the smaller ones. I've tried the larger ones, but the one that I have that has everything I need in it tends to be a Rush 24. On one of the side pockets, I have an international, it's a 3 input or a 3 it's an international power strip that's got 3 outlets on it, so it fits into that side pocket. You'd be surprised at how many friends you can make if you just put that in an airport, because now the people can keep on using the outlet. And it's international. It takes 240 as well, or 220 as well as the 120 or 110, and then so that's on one side. On the other side is usually my power supplies and so on and so forth. And then I have the one thing that I carry is I carry lots of converters. So if I want to go from male to female, female to male, all those things with XLR. I also have lots of bayonet or have lots of things to kind of extend SDI. A couple of those. I have converters for 3/8 to quarter 20, as well as mic to those, and I have like 8 different versions of those. And I use little makeup bags. You can get these little metal meshed makeup bags at Container Store. And that's what I put them in, because they slide really nicely past each other when they're in them. So they all have their own little bags which are also in those pieces there. I carry usually a bunch of SD cards in one little pocket. There's these front pockets that they have in there. carry a bunch of SD cards in one side of those, and then I usually have a battery that's usually going to be able to power things up. Got a cable to charge just about everything that I can think of, and usually a handful of USB-Cs and so on and so forth. And then I have my bag generally has a decimator in it. So there's always a decimator somewhere, hidden in the bottom. I keep a Theta in my bag. A Theta is the 360 camera from Ricoh. I have pictures of me getting on airplanes and going places all over the world. And I got to say that I did it. I usually use it for site surveys, but I used to just have fun with it. So I knew how to use the camera. And wow, do I have a great collection. And I would highly recommend having something like a Theta and just going like this every once in a while when you're doing some project, because when you go back to the end of that, you just have this, years of doing that. You have some pretty great, pretty great experiences that you can remember and see in a way that you didn't before. Anyway, those are some of probably the major things that I have. I also in the lower bag, I usually have zip ties, because I use zip ties to tie up my Pelican cases, and I always forget them. We try to put them in the Pelican cases, so we use them. They're always colored because TSA uses clear. So if you see your Pelican case show up and it's got clear zip ties on it, it means that TSA will not put zip ties on, but they will replace your zip ties. So if they take them off, they'll put new ones on. So we always use these bright colored ones, and then we know whether TSA opened that bag or that bag as they come through the system. The one thing I will say is if you're in a place like Iraq, do not have zip ties in your backpack, because they're used for something different in Iraq than they are in the rest of the world. And people get really stressed in the airport, in case you're wondering. I have first-hand experience in that experiment.
Tom, what do you have for us?
Well, I've got an oldie but a goodie, and that would be the Shure A15TG tone generator. This particular one's 50 years old, but they still make them. Provides a tone down your balanced microphone line and allows you to ring out any problems.
That's absolutely an excellent addition. And I'm going to be focusing, at least to some degree, on the things that I've never seen anybody else carry, just because, we have covered this in the past, and I want to go a little bit farther away than, the traditional this fixes that type stuff. I found Starbond makes black, medium thick cyanoacrylate, which is super glue. If you take the desiccants that come in your vitamins, those little packets, and you Velcro, you actually super glue Velcro onto them. They will not rattle about, they will not move, but they will still have the same drying effect in your backpack. This sounds simple, but I have found it to be tremendously valuable, especially, when you find yourself having to pull over that rain shell that all low pro backpacks have. And then seeing a whole bunch of fogged up stuff. Let's see, who is next? Bill, what do you got?
So I decided that I wanted to do a weird little thing. One of the themes of the last 10 years for me has been my equipment gets smaller. So a lot of the bigger things I have had to downsize. And one of the things that worked especially well for me was downsizing a tripod. I used to have mostly larger tripods because I had mostly larger cameras, but I ended up with shooting a lot of my iPhones. So I actually went down to a little B-free Manfrotto thing. And there's a couple of things I wanted to show about it. First of all, it's very, very, very small, which means that it's fabulous for sticking on the side of a backpack or something like that if you're just doing a run and gun shoot. The other little pro tip I would throw in there is you will notice that on the leg, I have gaffer's tape in both white and black. I used to have gray on another one of the legs. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've been in a rush trying to get set up for something, and I've just had a dangling cable or something, and I needed a small piece of gaffer's tape. So you will always know my tripods, whether they're the larger ones I use or the smaller ones, by the fact that each leg has a wrap that is a problem solver for me. So that's just one of the tips of one little kind of process that I use to make my life easier in the field.
Heck, I love it. Let's just keep, I'm willing to go back and forth at least for the next few minutes. Guy, what do you got?
Well, I could just start ripping stuff out of my backpack because I just came in from a flight last night. One of the things that I came in the other day, it's like this little light that it's from SmallRig. It looks like a little disc. It's got USB-C on the side. It's actually a light with a battery built in, and it telescopes.
That's
big,
cool.
telescopes open. Yeah, and then it has a phone holder, so you could clip it on. So this is what I used when I was out on the road for my light. You can see that it's got the ability to go from daylight to tungsten as well. $59 for that.
Wow, that's the kind of integration that I would expect, like seeing it in like a Tokyo airport. It's just too pretty. Oh, and gaffer's tape. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, gaffer tape, SDI to HDMI, keto fat bomb, USB-C power supply, video mic NTG, Netgear AT&T with the Ethernet, Baxis HDMI transmitter receiver with batteries, Triad Orbit clamp. So this is how you can clamp stuff. And then this is a whole integrated system where you can hook these things onto different things. And right now I've got I think my mic's got the 3/8. So then I could hook this onto like if you noticed on the picture I put behind the scenes, I hooked it onto a fan and used the fan as my base. Let's see, a little USB-C to Ethernet and USB. This one's really cool. It's a little mevo little phone holder that gives your phone 1/4-20, but it can also articulate and put your phone on a stand. So, or it is the stand, but it also has 1/4-20 on the bottom. So that's by it's called the Sidekick by mevo. What else is in here? Oh yeah, the big battery. Anchor. This one's like a 2800 with USB-C and USB. The OmniCharge, same thing, but with AC. So that one's omnicharge.com. And then MixPre, and what else? Oh, small monitor with SDI. This is by Portkeys. So it's got SDI with SDI out, loop, HDMI, and this one does not loop HDMI out. So that's SmallRig, and then it's the NP style batteries. Don't forget your Sharpie with some tape. So I like this spike strip tape to label stuff. Another light by Lytra. And I think that's about it. That's what's in my bag.
Well, that's a wrap on the second hour. Holy, that was incredible. Nicely done. And luckily, yes, you were just on a flight. I will add that we have, I think it's best for the producers to pay careful consideration to the questions that are already there and vote up the ones that matter because they're coming in quickly. Before I hand it back over to Tom for wrapping this question up, I will add this one in. Trauma shears are very handy, and because they are, in every first responder kit, and they're blunt, at least on one side, I've never seen them be mistaken as a weapon, and that's a handy thing. What do you got, Tom?
Well, Bill showing us his tripod reminded me of one more thing that I do with my tripod, and I don't have it handy, but you've seen these reflectors on the side of the road. They're called retroflectors. They always bounce the light back to wherever the source is. Well, they make a tape for that, and I also put that on my tripod. So if it's sitting out somewhere at night and I walk away from the tripod, it's really easy to find.
That's a good tip.
That's a great one. Bill, you want to read the next question and set us off?
Yeah, I just also will say I'm going to double down on always having a Sharpie near me. It is probably the single thing that I make sure is in my left pocket. In my right pocket, and this kind of riffs off what Guy was saying, I have a smaller version of the Anchor battery. For me, the critical piece of my kit on site is my cell phone always. Even if I'm not shooting with it, there are so many apps and tools in there, Sun Surveyor and a whole bunch of things that I literally use on every shoot that I want to make sure I have enough extra battery to get through one of those 13 or 14 hour shoots and keep it going. That said, let's dive into the next question. It comes from Cherry Cheetah in Dallas. What's the one piece of equipment you cannot leave the house without? And Jason Bache is going to start us, then Guy.
So for me, this is a two slot answer. One is if I'm bringing my backpack, and the other is, no, I will actually turn around as long as, I'm not halfway there. The I will turn around, I believe it or not, is my Apple Watch, because I use it for so many things, and it prevents me from having to use my phone so many times in the field that it is absolutely worth it. As far as things that if I'm taking a backpack, it's going to have this, I still can't shake the habit of having a decent DSLR, because I spend so much time in so many beautiful places in New Mexico that I've learned the hard way not to leave it. Guy?
Yeah, the one thing I didn't show is how I keep some of the basic cables organized is this bag that folds up. So basically it just folds up. I don't know where I got this, probably some Christmas gift or something, but it just folds up. But that keeps my basic, USB-C, USB-A, then my Lightning, and the little power cubes, and then a little Leatherman all inside of here. So this is the one thing that I got to remember to take, because it's if you don't have those basics, you're kind of hosed, especially.
Very good. Paul, you have something to add real quick?
Yeah, just real quick. What I never used to think of, but once I started carrying it, I couldn't stop, is a door stop, just to help not bang up doors, both in video and event production. So I wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, I'll support that. I can't tell you the number of times I've tried to get a cart full of gear through a doorway without some kind of door stop. You're damaging buildings and things like that. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, I learned that actually through the Google 360 training, and it was one of those odd things where like they straight up would fail you if you didn't have at least two door stops. Back when they really cared about the requirements of it. But boy, it stuck for me too. I absolutely agree. So let's see. Let's move on. Bill, you want to grab the next one?
Okay. Paul Wallace, Austin, Texas. What kind of bag or backpack do you have?
In the interest of time, if you have one, please just raise your hand real quick. I'm going to take 10 seconds and say this is intentionally a flashy backpack, but it is actually quite good in that, it is completely contained. This is the ProTactic BP 450 AW2, which is slightly smaller, but it has these tactical loops that I use a lot. And I like having something that is highly modular. I use the loops for, everything from a carpenter's pencil to a whole bunch of Sharpies, and, even the little clippy things that I think kind of look dumb when they're on a vest, but are very handy on a backpack. Guy?
Yeah, this one is made by Manfrotto. It's got room for your laptop, of course, side pockets. Then inside, it's got room for like lenses. If you're a photographer, it's meant to divide. I don't know if you can see all that in there, but that's what it looks like inside. And then there's room for more cables here. And then what I like is that it has that chest strap. So if it gets really heavy, which this one does, you can chest strap it across. And then you have those side pockets to easily grab stuff that you need. But that's made by Manfrotto.
Bill.
So I have the same kind of thing that Guy does. This is the one that I typically use for when I'm out shooting. It's from Case Logic, although other brands make the same thing. But the thing that really changed my life about this, before that, I was using, I think, a backpack that had dark outside and dark inside. But Case Logic made their inside this bright orange. And I can't tell you how much easier it is when you're searching for a particular connector or a cable, particularly on a night shoot or a dim shoot, even if you're using some flashlight, to have the interior of the backpack be lighter than the exterior. It just makes finding things so much easier and determining which cable end is this. If you're dark against dark, it's really hard to make those calls.
Yeah, I have. There was a very excellent moment when Pelican started doing that with all of their interiors, at least for the higher end trims with Velcro. And oh boy, was it nice. Javier?
Mine is out of reach. I want to try gravity, but I can't do it. It's a Columbia backpack. I really like the Columbia wears, that's the clothing and everything. So this is a very weather-resistant backpack. It has rained on me with a lot of gear inside, and it never happened. Not even a drop got inside. It has reflective material on the outside. It has padded pouch for the laptop, and it also, you can slide it over like on a carry-on. So you can, when you're in an airport or something, you can put it on top. So I'm very happy with the Columbia backpacks.
Nice.
Not to be outdone, Mr. Lindsay, he disappeared, so it's got to be something good.
I just had to go grab them because I use different ones for different things. This is a Jack George's American brand. This is like what I wear if I'm in a meeting. Like, this is my little bag because it's got lots of little pockets on the inside, and it doesn't look like like I'm going out for an expedition. The one that I use kind of more for production is a Hazard 4. So this is kind of over one shoulder. And Colleen Henry actually gave this to me, and she was really into them. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to like the one that goes over the shoulder, but I love this one. So I use it a lot as just kind of a day-to-day one if I'm bringing some gear in and I'm not really going anywhere. And then I had mentioned before this is the Hazard. This is not the Hazard. This is the Rush 24. And got Velcro, which I keep my old Pixelcore badges. It also has you can get these things printed. These are your name. You can get those printed for like $8. And so, although we spend a lot of time thinking about, and these were our standard issue for Pixelcore, so we sent everybody one. So we gave everybody a name. We also put the names on the handles because they'd all get stacked up next to each other, and we didn't know whose was which. So we'd print the names on there as well. But what you can see on the inside of this, hopefully, is just tons and tons and tons of lots of different compartments that I can slide things into. So it's definitely, I used it, that bag itself has been on every continent except for Antarctica. So anyway, they're pretty durable as well.
I love it. Bill, what's next?
We're sneaking off to Miami Beach, where Jeff Cohen's asking what should be in a voiceover's travel bag. Ooh.
Oh, you want to kick that one off, Bill?
Sure. So that's one thing about being a voiceover. Often you're doing work for clients, and often clients at the most inopportune time will ping you and go, hey, I need a change. The rate has changed, or the person who is in charge of this has changed. So you find yourself having to work in a lot of places that you aren't as perfect as maybe your voice booth or whatever. So you find yourself having to do make as do. I do pull the 416 and travel with it because it's a known mic. I understand how it works. That plus a little Zoom H4 as a recorder and a short XLR cable are all I really need in terms of being able to record my voice. But there are other things that I have found that are useful when you're doing that. Now, we talk about making pillow forts and things like that. You have to kind of understand how to get yourself in a position where it's not too noisy. One technique I've used a lot is if I have an overnight, I don't have to have it done immediately. I will literally go out to my car in the parking lot on a quiet night if I'm not near a big, heavy road and just record in the car because it makes a good little isolation booth. So some form of recorder, some form of microphone. Doesn't have to be the 416. It can be anything that you can get into a quiet place and will record your voice accurately. Those are the basics. After that, it's really what's inside your head in terms of understanding how sound works and knowing that, this hotel room bathroom is just too hard surfaced and noisy, and I can't get a good voice over there. And I may find myself under a blanket in the corner of the room just to try to deaden things. But that's all I really have. I used to carry a little inline phantom power and XLR to USB thing. I don't really carry that anymore. I think they still work, but that Zoom H4 works for me better.
Yeah, I love Zoom's line. It's certainly not the same as a Mix Pre, but oh boy, is it a tenth the cost. And I would say, I don't know, what do you think? 80% of the quality? Something along those lines. And unless you're using a really, really big mic, which you shouldn't be doing in the field unless you can't help it, I think that's the right way to go. One more tip on a car. If you have a dash, protector across the top, put your sun visor in, and that will eliminate the reflection from your windshield. That actually has saved my bacon in the past. What is next?
Chirachita in Dallas says, when flying, what would you carry with you versus rent at your destination?
Ooh, I love it. Alex?
Yeah, so it depends. So it depends on where you're going, and what and who you have. Like, so different cities. So if you're going to a place where you don't think you're going to be able to get a hold of rental equipment, or rental equipment may not be, there might not be a plethora of places to go, then you may want to bring your own stuff. It also depends on who your partners are. So for instance, in Europe, we have some pretty good partners, especially in Germany. I don't really think about bringing all of my things, but usually what I rent are the harder things that require less setup. So lights, oftentimes cameras and lenses. Those are the edge peripherals are things that I tend to try to rent, or I'll go after renting those first. The core, I tend not to rent. I tend to, because we build those out in our studio. We make sure that they're all working before we leave. I don't, it's too stressful to show up. Most of the events, you don't get enough time to like fix something that if a piece of component isn't what you asked for, isn't exactly working, there's a bad connector, you're now in a real tight spot. So I tend to like to bring those things with me. And we, use a variety of shipping companies like Rocket to get things around the world, or we just check it. I think our record is 42 bags to check to Japan. If you want to know about what's called a media pass, you can do some research. We can talk about it another time. But you can save some money on that as well. It's actually cheaper than shipping it, but you got to get the right carts and everything else to make that work.
Yeah, and be prepared to leave cash tips, because the SkyCap guys, they will remember you, no doubt. Guy?
Yeah, by the way, it's you think about $2 a bag. $2 a bag keeps everybody happy. So that's when you think about the tips. And then they won't complain when you show up.
I typically it's $2 a bag, at least 3 for a Pelican. Guy?
Yeah, it just depends on where you're going to and how reliable everybody is. Like when we went to Africa, the things that we rented were the big lights, the big airy lights, tripods. Those were the things that I didn't want to carry. But for the most part, having traveled around the world, it's just you want stuff that's reliable, that's working, that in and out. When I was at Zoomtopia, I kind of chuckled because one of the Bird Dog 4K cameras, it has a 1/4-20 on the bottom, but they're using a Cartoni tripod, high-end tripod, which they obviously rented. And it was 3A. So they had a little bushing that was, a little tiny thing. And that weight of that entire camera was resting on that little bushing, and there was a spacer. So every time that the camera moved, it was now jiggling. So little things like being able to test and know what connects, because that's the biggest thing when you rent is, will this connect? Is it a male or a female, or do you need some kind of adapter? And if you don't have those things and you're in the middle of nowhere, you're going to be hosed. So I like to bring almost everything that I possibly can, as well as a backup and a backup of the backup. So that's the way to think about it.
Yeah, you've got to have supply lines, feeding supply lines like a good army. What's in your trunk would be an excellent second hour too. Bill?
So a couple of things here. Number one, I try to have that backpack that I just showed you set up so that if all my luggage got lost, I could at least show up on somewhere and shoot audio and video. That means that I've got 2 iPhones with me. Usually I've got the monopod that has a camera on the top, and I can Bluetooth it to a monitor on the bottom for high and low shots. But that's just my, oh my gosh, everything else is gone system. I have the little Sennheiser AVX wireless mic, enough units in the bag so that I can get audio from either a handheld mic or a lav on somebody. And I want to know that if everything else is gone, I can work with that. As to the cartage through airport, I have to tell you, I try to keep 20s in my left front pocket and 10s in my right pocket. And I want to know how hard is somebody working for me. I had a circumstance where I flew into Chicago and I got off with, I think, 7 bags. And I looked through the front window and the place was just a madhouse. I mean, there were so many people there. And I caught the eyes of a SkyCap, and he looked hungry, and he came over and I said, I got this problem. I'm an hour early here, but I can see it's a disaster in there. He said, don't don't worry, I gotcha. And he brought out the big thing and he ran me past all the lines, essentially right to the gate that I needed to get to, because he knew everybody in the airport. And I think I reached into that 20 pocket and I gave him a huge tip, because he had made the difference between massive stress and comfort for me. And I want to reward the people in the industry who do that. So I always made sure, never a rule. It's like, this young man or young woman who's really working hard really helped me. I think that needs to be acknowledged.
Yeah, that happened only once to me when I was 19. I'm always very early for flights, and I will never forget a similar level of service. Tom, what do you got?
Well, you started talking about the $2 a bag, and it reminded me of a friend of mine who said that he always goes to the bank and gets a stack of $2 bills before he leaves, and he gives them out for tips because everybody remembers the guy with the $2 bills, and they'll take good care of you.
That's great.
Yeah, Steve Wozniak at one point, I think his business card was a $2 bill. That's just one of those odd little things that is just perfectly Wozniak. Might be urban legend, I don't know. But let's see. What's next, Bill?
Andy Kokendorfer, Vieira, Florida, says, what's in your travel bag currently for Zoom? Mic, camera, light, and peripherals.
Javier?
Since the latest version of iOS, I've been using the continuity camera. It's been like very simple to use, and it has a great picture quality, and it works great in low light. That's where a lot of webcams really don't do it well. Right now I'm using a Magic Arm, but I'm trying to get something like the one the Belkin, I think it is, that they put up. So it's not that you just put it on top of your laptop. For audio, I use a software called Crisp.ai. I think it's Crisp with a K. With that turned on, you can basically anywhere use the internal mic of the MacBook. It takes care of most of the fan noise. I mean, it's not a professional quality. You can record something, but for meetings, it's perfect. And what Paul said about the door stops reminded me that I also carry 2 door stops, not only for what he said, but also to lift the laptop, because especially my MacBook tends to get hot, and lifting it just like an inch helps a lot with the airflow, and that keeps your video and everything smoother because the processor is not working so hard to keep the heat off.
Love it. Guy?
Yeah, I was just going to show that same thing that Javier was talking about, continuity camera. This is with that $59 light from SmallRig. So now I've got it with the accessory so this allows you to bring the phone up, and then here you can actually position and turn the phone wherever you want it to go. So you could turn it, see how it angles like that, it articulates. So that's continuity camera with the SmallRig little light. And then for audio, sorry, I'm talking a little bit out of the mic, but here is the little setup that I've been using. So the interesting thing about the Video Mic NTG is it's USB-C, but then you get a headphone out. So in Zoom, you can have your in-ears in, and you can adjust the volume level. Here on the back is the volume level. And then you'll see that I've got it on this clamp, which is this is the IO Flex from Triad Orbit. You can see that this will really, it's not a cheap piece, it's a very stable piece. And then on the other end, you can get different clamps. This is their smaller one. I have some bigger ones that are in use right now that I can't grab, but this is a small one that should allow you to clamp onto most desks or things like that. So that's really handy in a hotel room or wherever you're at to be able to just get your mic where you want it and position it properly. So those are 2 items there that I take on the road for Zoom.
Alex?
Yeah, and I have. Let's see if I can. This is not the most recent version of what I do when I'm on the road, but it gives you kind of an idea of. I did get better about putting something up. I have now a riser, and I don't think I have it near me, that I replaced my luggage with. You can see my luggage there because it brought up my laptop a little bit. I've replaced that Brio with one of these. So this is my new camera. This little Link. It just looks a lot nicer. It lets me adjust things a lot faster. I still use the lights. So those are the Nanlite 6Cs. I use a Mix Pre with noise assist, and what mic I use keeps changing. But those are kind of the basic things. And at first it was a lot of trouble It takes me about 15 minutes to get set up now. So it's a relatively painless way to jump into things.
And over the years, we've seen many iterations of that.
Yeah,
I love to see the most recent one. Bill?
So the other thing that I take with me now on travel, I work every day here with my laptop on a riser from a company called Rain Designs. It just brings it up about 4 inches, which is perfect for my reaching height, and it angles the laptop base up a little bit. So that's one of the reasons I don't have problems with the touch bar, because it's a different geometry to get to it. But on the road, I found this little thing, which is a riser that you can bring on the road. It collapses down to be incredibly small. And so I could toss this in my backpack and recreate the exact geometry of my normal day-to-day experience, which means all my muscle memory works for everything that I reach for and all the things. So that's been really useful for me. It's just a little thing I found.
Next question.
Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota says, what's the next piece of gear you need or want to replace for your kit that you wish you had?
All right, I'll start this one off, and it's more of a wishful thinking because it's not in any immediate hurry, largely because I haven't found one that I really love. My Canon 6D Mark II is not a great DSLR, but it's small and it has GPS in the nose, and that makes such a difference. Plus, I already have the glass, the strobes, but I'm definitely due for a new camera body. One of these days, they're going to realize that the GPS is, if you're going to have any metadata, that should be it. Alex?
Yeah, I'm looking for something that doesn't exist. And so that is, for the 6C, what I really want is something that will attach to the top and bottom with a pass-through quarter 20 that fans out to create a larger source. These sources are pretty bright. And what I want is to increase their size, not something flat, but something that literally comes out and like a fan just closes so I can pack it, but then rolls back out again, that I can just attach to the top and bottom. It would change the quality of these lights by 10x if I could make the sources that they're connected to bigger. And so that's it's one of those things like, oh, if I have time, I'll model something, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Guy?
Yeah, the one thing that I'm lusting after is that new RV mode of the Starlink. So it's the flat high performance that it doesn't have to move around. This guy's holding one up in this video, and it's smaller than I thought it would. It won't fit in my backpack, but yeah, that's the one thing that I was wishing that I had was just reliable internet out on the road. And so $2,500 for that thing. It's $130 a month. So it's a stretch, but one can dream, right?
Absolutely. Bill, bring us home.
Well, it's a little thing. It's not out there yet, I don't think, because they haven't. But the batteries, and this is an anchor one, the one I always keep with me when I'm traveling because I can put it in my pocket. The big ones are better. And in fact, I have one of the big ones that has enough wattage. I think it's a 100-watt battery that it has USB-C, and you could run your laptop for a while off that. But I just don't like that big form factor. I'm always putting it in something, and it's not with me when I suddenly notice that my phone or some other device is getting them. So I hope they continue the energy density wars, and we can get something that's this size that has USB-C in it that will have enough wattage to run a laptop or something like that for a longer time. That would make me a lot more comfortable.
Couldn't agree more. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Chris Widener in Lafayette, Indiana. I've carried a Leatherman original Wave Multitool for over a decade with the double bit sets and the extender. What is your go-to multi-tool?
Alex?
I've owned a lot of Leathermans. I found that I could get away with the skeletal as much as the Wave or the Surge. So the Surge was like a little too much. The Wave is classic, and that I've had since I felt like since they made it, but I don't know. But mine got so loose that it was hard to stay open. But the skeletal has been the one that I carried around most recently. Also, the Micro Leatherman is another one that I like a lot. And finally, when I'm really in production, I don't have it on right now. When I'm really in production, I actually use the Tread, the Leatherman Tread, which is a little pricey, but it's awesome. Like, you actually take it off and use it all the time.
It's a bracelet. Nerd tennis bracelet. Yeah,
it is. And I got to tell you, get more comments on it than anywhere else. And again, another place, another thing not to wear in Iraq. It creates a lot of conversation at the airport. So it is super useful. It is TSA approved, even though it doesn't look like it. And it's got little screwdrivers. So you've got some little Phillips and some little flatheads, and you've got even a little place to pop your SIM out that's hidden underneath it. You've got things you can do, a bottle opener, and you've got lots of little things that are all built into it. And I found that having it attached to my wrist made sure that I solved so many little problems with the tread. And it seems overpriced and over, like, almost too much, but I used it every day when I was traveling around the world doing production.
I've gone between Leatherman's and Gerber, and at the moment what's on my belt is a Gerber for a handful of reasons, not the least of which is I finally found a piece of sheet metal with a real belt clip, and it has hex tools on the side, so you can actually just take the belt tool off and use it to tighten up a bolt. What I like about this one is that it's single action, so I can deploy the pliers with one hand, and I don't have to look, and I can do it ambidextrously. That is a wonderful addition. Bill?
I've downsized a little. I used to have a full size, and I moved to this guy, which is the Super Tool 300. It's under $100, and it has all the stuff that I normally use. The wire clippers on there are particularly good, and it's got more needle nose than flat pliers, and I find that really useful when I'm trying to work with small things. But I've migrated to that, and it's been really good for me.
Next question.
Next one, Stefan Fischer, Würzburg, Germany. Alex, Decimator has a wide range of products. Which one do you carry and why?
Alex?
Yeah, the one that I use is the the MDHX. If I need something more than that, if I need 4K, I need something else, I have other tools for that. But the one that I keep in my bag is a 1080p. It's the MDHX. I don't use the Cross because the Cross is really easy. So there's folks in my company that know how to use the web interface. I only know how to use the front little buttons. And I can get to anything really, really fast on the front buttons of a Decimator. So I don't know even how to plug it into a laptop and run it. So because of that, the Cross has a way you can get yourself into a state that's really hard to get out of. And so I prefer the MDHX. It's got less things for the same price, I think, or very close to the same price. But I like it better. It's just easier if I'm just using it as glue, which is what I do use it for.
Paul?
Yeah, just a quick thing about the MDHX that I never realized, and most people I've talked to have never realized, is that it can take 5 volts to 12 volts in. So you can actually run it from a USB power bank if you make the cable yourself. You can't use the USB input, but you can use the plug, which makes it really handy for testing. I would obviously never use that in production, but just as a quick, hey, is there signal here? Or hey, I need to send a blue screen or yellow screen, whatever. Makes the MDHX so much more powerful.
I am today's years old. No, that's a great tip.
You just got the Great British Baking equivalent of a handshake from Mr. Lindsay.
Yeah, that's good. That's great, Paul.
Tom,
that's
real
good.
quick, what do you got?
Well, I bought my MDHX and just felt like it was a rite of passage here at office hours.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Chris Widener in Lafayette, Indiana. Batteries. Mine have changed significantly and expensively thanks to this group. Now we're running a SmallRig V-mount battery, BV99. What about you?
Oh, Alex, take it.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I run with sound devices uses the Sony, I think the 970s or what I use for those. You have to remember that the sound devices, the larger sound devices, don't charge the battery, so you still need a charger for them, which drives me a little crazy. But I've been using a lot of those in the past. I do have some V mounts, and the reason that I have a bunch of V mounts is because they would ship faster when I needed them the next day. I don't think that's the best way for you to choose large batteries. Almost everybody likes the Anton Bauer mounts better than the V mount. The V mounts have a tendency to they are more likely to come off when under stress than the Anton Bauer connections. And so most people in production will want the Anton Bauer. Again, I have a bunch of V mounts because I had a production, I needed them quickly, and the Anton Bauer ones would take 2 days and the V mounts would take 1 day. And so that's why I have them laying around. But they're good. You want to make sure you get D-taps for them so that you can, then that D-tap is going to be able to, think about all the things you may want to connect that to, because you can power a lot of things from those larger batteries beyond a specific camera.
Yeah, it's the only reason that I don't have all Anton Bauers, that and I don't like paying for them. So, there's that. I believe Guy at one point had a package, and I bought a couple 6K cameras that I think you were looping something in. What were they, a green power? But yeah, those were DTAP.
Core SWX batteries that have the USB on and DTAP as well. So yeah, Core SWX is the ones that we include in the kits.
Yeah, those are handy. Next question.
Next one comes from Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona. Going on a work trip soon. Spring for a new suitcase with the wheels or stick with soft-sided backpacks? I'll be on planes, trains, and automobiles.
Alex.
You're John Candy.
Yeah, I bought a lot of bags. I used to only like 2 wheels because they were because they felt more like I have skateboard wheels is what I really like to go over things. But it depends on where you're going. So if you are going to go over a lot of rugged areas, which I know, Jack may do, but if you're going to rugged areas, I like 2 skateboard wheels over the smaller turnable wheels that have 4 on the bottom. But because I don't do that as much anymore, I stick with the 4 on the bottom. I have a tendency to use either the away bags. I don't actually care about the battery in the away bag. In fact, it became problematic because I got the very first version of it and I had to unscrew it, and I finally just took it out and just there's a hole there now. But they're very, very light. And the other ones that I use a lot are Tumis, because they are light. The thing that I look for is the size. So it's 9x14 by 22 in the United States, 9x14 by 20 in Europe. And so I think about that because those are the sizes that'll fit into almost every overhead that you run into. And I like to use hard cases because it means I can't pack it more than I can fit it into the overhead. Like there's no chance. Like if the bag closed on my, I use an away bag. If my away bag closes, it's going to fit. I used to use Pelican cases as general purpose. I don't, because Lufthansa will weigh your bag, weigh a Pelican case every single time they see it. At every stop, if they see a Pelican case, they assume it's heavier than it needs to be, and they'll try to weigh it. And it is heavier than the away bag or the Tumi bags because they're built much lighter. So those are the things that I think about for carry-ons. I don't really. I check gear. I don't check my personal stuff. I can live on a carry-on for months. And so,
next question.
Next one comes to us from Douglas Carmichael. If you were carrying a work box instead of a bag, what would you carry that you couldn't put in the bag?
Go ahead, Alex, real quick.
Yeah, DeWalt makes a really good, I think it's DeWalt makes a really good one that's like we put printers and all the, it's got all these little shelves. And when you close it, it actually locks. And we throw them in trucks. We've even checked them. It'll lock up and stay in its state. And it's actually the only thing you have to do is teach someone how to take it apart, because getting it to open again is a thing. But it has all little shelves, and we keep everything from lozenges to printers to paper to snacks in it.
Yep. I'm trying to remember the name. They actually revised it and made it slightly bigger. I have the original, the stackable one with its own little carriage thing. And it really annoyed me that all the new stuff, they're like, yeah, we think it should be slightly bigger. I'm guessing they wanted to make a larger 20-volt tool, and there you go. Bill?
This is weird. But I try not to take my gear out of my Pelican cases whenever I'm on location if I can't. So rather than carrying a heavier work box, I've had this weird thing for a while where I actually, and this is usually clients that I know, I wouldn't do this the first time I'm with them, but if they know and trust me and understand, they don't care what I'm bringing on set as long as it works. I have been known to take one of these out with me. It is a collapsible camping kitchen. And the thing that I like about it is that it'll hold, and I've got one that has actually that side extension on 2 sides. I can put 3 heavy Pelican cases on this thing, open them up and work out of them for a whole shoot, and then close them up. The Pelican cases never get, nothing gets taken out of them. And so it's just there when I need it. And it keeps it off the floor, particularly if I'm going into an unfinished space. I occasionally, with corporate clients, we've had something that's been so complex, like a lot of people around a table, or maybe a photo shoot, and we're in an unfinished space in their corporation, and there are no tables, nothing I can drag over. That little thing has saved my tail a lot of times because I can put 3 full-size Pelican cases on it and work out of them, and then just collapse the whole thing up, and it just goes away real easy.
Next question.
Chris Widener, Lafayette, Indiana. I'm thinking about buying a Canon PowerShot PIC active tracking cameras for behind the scenes shots as a set and forget. Thoughts?
Go ahead, Alex.
I didn't even know that this thing existed. So it looks like a pretty cool setup. I think that I'm not clear that it'll be competitive with these little guys here. If it's a USB-C camera, these are going to be smaller, I think. This is the Insta360 Link. The chip size, I think, is slightly larger on these or the same for less money. So you could buy two of these for almost two of these for one of those because that's $499 and this is $299. And I'm going to guess, given that I've used the software that comes with this Link and I've used a lot of Canon software, that the software on this will be better than Canon. So Canon, they should take their entire interface. They should revamp their. What I like to think of now is they should musk up their interface design and shift things around a little bit.
Yes, and add a meaningless blue check to things,
exactly.
Just on the side of the thing. Does that camera do a record? Like, can you actually record directly onto that, set it and forget it style?
Oh, does this one actually records? Oh, simultaneous recording. Oh, well then never mind. The Canon looks great. I would love to test that one. Guy, have you had these have you seen these?
I have not seen those.
Yeah, I didn't realize it recorded as well. So, okay. So Chris, if you get this, we just want to know how it worked. It looks really
please.
Cool. Yeah.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Douglas Carmichael, and he says, would you ever carry a portable fan or other cooling device when working in warmer and or more humid climates?
Well, personally, I would say no, unless it's absolutely insane. Humidity, of course, is a bigger deal than heat when it comes to equipment. In general, I'm skinny enough that it just doesn't affect me. Alex?
Yeah, I have a great thing that I carry along. It's called a rider. A rider that says that the room that I work in can't be more than 50% humidity and 75 degrees. Like it's the best fan ever. You can use the paper to go up and down, but mostly you can hold everybody accountable. But literally, I won't put my gear or my crew into a location that's more than 75 degrees, unless they were outside and paid a lot of money to do it. But my crews won't work at over 75 degrees because they can't think. I can't think over 75 degrees.
It depends for me on what I'm doing. I've had shoots, and I worked most of my career in Phoenix, and heat is just an issue that you have to deal with. I never really used fans. One case when we had to do a ton of spa outdoor work when we were outdoors in Arizona in August, I had fans that I dragged out. The problem on location is getting AC power for them, unless you're running Jennies and you don't want to really put another load like a fan on it. Umbrellas for me. I had a lot of black golf umbrellas and a lot of things for attaching them. And every camera got a golf umbrella. Every person's chair on location got a golf umbrella. You just want people to be able to get out of direct sunlight. And so that was a must. And we carried a lot of that stuff out onto location for the shoots where we had to be in the heat. And just another tip for those of you who might be going into hot zones, the worst thing you can do is say, I'm going to cool down. I'm going to go into the air conditioning for a half hour, then come back out. At the end of the day, you will be destroyed. Your body trying to regulate between air conditioning and the outdoor environment just takes a horrible toll on the human body. Stick it out, get your production done, and then go back inside.
Absolutely. And if you're outdoors, actually right outside of Roswell, I've done some drone shoots where there's this thing from Australia that basically is a bandana that is full of, I don't even know what they are. It kind of feels like the little balls in tapioca, but if you wet them, it is an amazing thing. You roll it around your neck, you can wear it under a collar, and it works incredibly well. I have been out, no joke, 12-hour days, 110 degree heat, and you and the operator end up drinking an entire case of water, and there are no bio breaks at all because it just evaporates right out of you. But yeah, absolutely an incredible alternative to a fan. Alex, wrap us up.
In Cambodia, we have the same thing. I was looking around trying to find it. It's probably right on the other side of this little flexible wall that I have here. But we have the same thing where you basically pull it around your neck, you get it wet, you put it in there, and it definitely works. And I've worked in Cambodia. That's the one place that over my little rider, I've been worked in 110 degree plus. And for some reason, that little thing over your neck makes a big difference.
Next question.
Chris Widener, Lafayette, Indiana. I hate using plastic silverware. I started carrying a finessCity Titanium Utility Cutlery Set. Am I crazy or crazy useful?
Alex,
I saw the question. I saw the question and I already bought it. I was like, boom, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
There's your answer.
So yeah, the answer is no, you're not crazy. And the fact that the reason that I bought it so quickly is because it has all the utensils and chopsticks, because I keep chopsticks. I have metal chopsticks because I can eat almost anything except for soup, even some soups with chopsticks. And so a lot of times I just have chopsticks that I carry in my bag. But that is just a little bit more complete. And at $27, I was like, yes, please.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Juan C. Robles in Mexico City on the panel here. What is your less used gear that you always carry anyway?
Javier and Alex, 20 seconds each.
Oh, Oscar.
I think that award goes to, I have an USB card reader, an SD card, and a CF card reader. I almost never use it, but when I really have to get something out of a camera into a computer and have to do it quickly, it's been a saver.
Guy, sorry, not out.
Yeah, I've been lugging around this monitor, but I'm starting to, this is the UPerfect 17-inch 4K monitor. The nice thing is it's got the Visa mount in the back. And so I've been carrying it around, but I've found that with the iPad 12.9-inch, it's got the built-in battery. And with a MacBook, you can just roll your cursor right on over. And most hotel rooms already have a TV. So I've been lugging this thing around and I haven't been using it. So I'm going to downsize to the 15 or just stop.
Next question.
Next one comes from Chris Widener again in Lafayette, Indiana. I carry 3 mevos, 3 routers, 2 hotspots, 2 Rode mics, a DJI wireless mic set, and 3 monopods with 3 batteries, 2 iPads, and 2 spare iPhones, and 1 camera light, beef jerky, and miscellaneous cabling. What is in your grab-and-go live broadcasting bag?
I think you're only missing the partridge and possibly the pear tree, but it may have flowered by the time you get everything out of that case. We don't have anybody biting, so let's just save the time and move on. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, would carrying a small field mixer be useful to deal with unexpected audio failures?
The short answer, and I love getting to do this, yes. Next. Oh, Alex, go ahead.
Typically, that's why we have sound devices in our kit. So even if we have a QL1 or we have having something that is, in the past, we had 744s, and of course, as we moved to the or 788s, I'm sorry, we had a couple. We would oftentimes have a 788, and I have a Scorpio that I take with me to larger things. They can, like a Scorpio is nearly a full mixer, like with all the routing and everything else that you want to do. So if you had to build something, would it be harder to do than a QL1? Absolutely. Just because it's not as many dials, but you could. And so having one of those is very compact and it's very useful.
It is the most compact, beautiful $10,000 piece of brick you'll ever see.
It costs more than the QL1. So your backup is more expensive than the main line.
No joke. Next question.
JJ McKenna, Santa Venetia, California. Are there any bags that can be converted into a Flycam rig?
Any bag can be converted into a Flycam rig. You're just not going to like the outcome. Just, think of it that way. No, I don't think there is a transformer bag out there unless Blackmagic has, photoshopped us a lie that everyone, is trying to find until it gets made somewhere in I don't know, Australia was the last one I saw. No one else is biting, so let's move on to our last of the day. It looks like I'm a little bit early, but I don't know. Hopefully someone will want to hear what Douglas has to ask.
Douglas is asking, with the rapidly flattening cost versus performance curve in PC Mac-based lighting control, would carrying an ETCnomad, a MA3 or onPC setup not be a bad idea if you're a lighting director in case of console failure?
Start us out, Alex.
It absolutely makes sense. Yeah, having a software-based system that you can then push back out via some version of a IP to DMX controller makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, my immediate fear would be How quickly can you get what you need into and out of that? Because if it's not a perfect substitute, if it's a near miss substitute, yeah, it might save your bacon, but you may end up living to regret it. Bill, what do you think?
Well, the only thing I'm saying is that I have noticed so much of the things that I used to have a dedicated piece of hardware for, it is possible to do a virtualized job on a laptop. Is it ideal? No. And in this particular case, when you want maybe your tactile-based lighting operator and you want as much tactile control as possible, I have found that the things that I've tried to migrate from a device like mixing with sliders onto an iPad or something like that, it's never been a particularly satisfying process for me. But there are a lot of other things that I used to need hardware for, and we talked earlier about things like sun surveyors and scopes and things like that I used to want a piece of hardware for. Software in my laptop does a really good job these days of making that something that's just built into my workflow and the things that I normally carry. So I think that's a plus for me. I think things are getting easier in that respect. Maybe lighting control will go that direction and we'll all be happy with it in the future.
I love it. What a wonderful second hour. And thank you for graciously stepping into reading, Bill. I know we were supposed to co-host, but that worked really well. As promised, and I didn't get a chance to bring this up, this is my weirdest piece of It's in My Bag. You can get a very small TENS unit. And no joke, if you get an ache, and it can truly ruin a week if you're going to be shooting somewhere for a week, a TENS unit is truly one of the best additions, maybe 60, 70 bucks. And they're small and they're very, very handy. One last thing, Zima board. Mine arrived today, shipped from China, took about 2 weeks. I'm really excited about the potential that these have to basically replace all the PCs that I never want to see again. So that's that. Very well done. And I'd like to thank everybody who does, the really good and important work on the back end, because without you, we'd just be a Zoom meeting. And, people have enough of those. We want them to actually come and join in, and check us out at officehours.global. Bill, want to wrap us up?
Sure. Just a couple of announcements coming up. Don't forget that today after the show is Adora Lab with L. Wilson Sparrow. That's coming up. The community events listing also, Birdie with Lois is having a team meeting in lieu of the show this afternoon starting at 5 p.m. Pacific. So if you're involved with that, 8 p.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And so see the Birding with Lois Discord for more information on that. So those are the closing show announcements. We're ready to take it off. Thank you all.
Thank you. That was great. Talalak traversal is how many times over the Earth?
69,131 miles. 11,000.
It's pretty far. It's farther than Elon Musk's checkmark got.
Guy, who is that?
That puppy is so cute. Yes. Oh, everyone's in blackout. Oh, there it is. Yeah, bring it back. Bring it back.